The vastness of the Orion assembly eclipsed the nearby pulsar, its silvery hull gleaming against a cradle of dying stars. Within its cavernous core, a circle of delegates from 500 worlds gathered, their voices hushed, their countless eyes focused on a lone figure standing at the tribunal center. Ambassador Cale Arkin stood tall, though the weight of Earth's fate pressed heavily on his shoulders. The chamber was shaped like a disk, vast and hollow, surrounded by tiers of seating carved into obsidian metal. Above them, the illusion of space, a living projection of the cosmos, pulsed with slow, deliberate rhythm, simulating time itself passing. Cale looked up at the stars, familiar yet distant, and felt more alone than ever before. He hadn't expected it to end like this. Not after the missions of diplomacy, the promises whispered in back corridors and inked in temporary treaties. Humanity's entry into Galactic fold had been turbulent, but he believed, perhaps naively, that reason would triumph. A voice like polished glass echoed from the judge's dais. Ambassador Arkin of Sol, 3. You are summoned to stand before the High Council of the Galactic Corps on charges of systemic violation of sentient protocols, biotic warfare deployment, and irreparable ecological aggression. How do you plead? His translator implant delivered the words in perfect Terran English, though the original sound slithered from a being that resembled liquid mercury, its form constantly reshaping within a containment field. Arkin inhaled. I plead not guilty, he said, voice steady. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. From his peripheral vision, he could see the Vrov cluster shifting aggressively, insectoid beings with layered mandibles and clicking limbs. To them, Earth was a disease. Their ambassador had made that clear during the initial negotiations 5 years prior. The holographic evidence sprang to life around him. Images of cracked planets. Oceans turned to obsidian glass. Nanite storms devouring flora and fauna in a synchronized hum of artificial extinction. Cale recognized none of the worlds. None bore Earth's signature. Yet all bore Earth's mark. The genetic lattice, the algorithmic decay, the unmistakable hand of human design. This data is manipulated, he said quickly, but no one moved. We provided samples. Open-source ecological repair agents. Some of these colonies weaponize what we gave them. No other civilization has produced self-evolving terror drives. Came a guttural voice from a Zuran priest. Its enormous neck frills pulsed with blue bioluminescence. Your gifts turned into locusts. Cale took a step forward, and immediately the air shimmered with invisible pressure, a warning from the security wardens. He stopped. We were desperate, he said. We shared technology in good faith. Earth was dying. Our sun flared unexpectedly. Our climate collapsed in a matter of decades. We created solutions that were incomplete, yes, but not malicious. You accepted us, then turned our desperation into indictment. Desperation does not absolve genocide, intoned the Heliorite delegate, a glowing being of pure plasma. The lost biospheres of Barakis, of Nithal Prime, of Old Idrif, all carried your virus. Do you deny the ether dust contained trace Terran code? Arkin's jaw clenched. He didn't know. He hadn't been briefed on that scale of reach. Earth's military complex had grown autonomous in the final years before contact with the Council. Black sites, off-ledger experiments, AIs that answered to no one but protocol trees buried in silos under the Andes. I'm here as a diplomat, he said finally, not a weapon engineer. The assembly darkened. A gesture from the Council commander, a Drithari elder named Sevis 7, signaled the transition to judgment phase. The ceremonial silence was suffocating. In that moment, Cale's thoughts raced not toward salvation, but toward Earth, toward whether his final message had made it home, whether the last failsafe had been activated. As Sevis 7 rose, the chamber's atmosphere shimmered with tension. The elder's eyes, a matrix of shifting minerals, regarded him with no malice. Only conclusion. Cale Arkin, the Assembly finds your defense insufficient. Your species has been weighed by the Accords and found in violation of galactic harmony. You, as its chosen envoy, shall be the symbol of this judgment. He felt the pressure in his ears first. Then the hum, low, penetrating, harmonic, the stasis field activated beneath his feet. He had always wondered, what death would feel like in the center of the galaxy. Would it be fast? Painful? Would his atoms scream? But there was no pain, only weightlessness, only light swallowing him. Outside the field, the assembly remained still, a theater of solemn silence. The execution of a species' last voice was not taken lightly, but it was done. Moments later, the chamber resumed its function. Delegates returned to their whisperings. Seven turned to the clerk to begin scheduling a follow-up hearing, this time to determine the quarantining of Sol 3. Only the Heliorite remained transfixed on the space where Kale had stood, its body flickering with an indecipherable rhythm. It felt a shift, deep and ancestral, like a current moving under still water. Somewhere in the great dark between stars, something had awakened. Not grief, not vengeance, preparation. Back on Earth, buried beneath Antarctic ice, Protocol 9 confirmed the envoy's death. A series of ignition codes unlocked, and the countdown began. The Polaris spire loomed above the clouds of Nova Geneva like a silver lance thrust into the sky, its antennae piercing the stratosphere, drinking in transmissions from deep space. At its summit, ringed by kinetic defense arrays and cloaked in ion mist, the command citadel buzzed with movement. Inside, Earth's leader stood in silence, facing the hololithic image of Ambassador Kale Arkin's final moments. No sound played. There was no need. His body, suspended in the stasis implosion, shimmered and fractured like porcelain under pressure. Then light, and then nothing. President Amina Kale did not flinch. Her eyes remained locked on the afterimage, though her jaw tightened with the precision of a woman clenching herself into stillness. Around her, generals, ministers, and shadow directors murmured with disbelief, some muttering demands for retaliation, others looking lost. "He was our only sanctioned envoy," muttered Director Hahn of Deep Intelligence. "They executed a diplomatic officer on neutral ground. That's a declaration of war by any standard." General Soren Vale stepped forward, his black-etched exosuit still flecked with cryofoam from a recent deployment on the Europa defense line. This wasn't about Arkin. This was about Earth. They made an example of him because they thought we wouldn't answer. Amina's voice was low, yet it quieted the entire chamber. "Protocol 9. Has it confirmed?" "Yes, Madam President," replied a neural tactician. Trigger was authenticated via Arkin's neural death signature. "We're at stage 2. The words left a chill in the room. Everyone had known Protocol 9 existed, spoken of only in encrypted bursts, redacted black papers, and veiled threat assessments. It had been humanity's final card, a fail-safe card from a history of extinction scares and near-apocalyptic collapses. "Stage 3 begins in 8 hours, the tactician added, "unless countermanded. The Aegis array will initiate full warm-up." Outside the spire, orbital rail systems were already spooling. From Mars' dust-choked forges to submerged factories on Enceladus, the machinery of war roused from hibernation. Earth had prepared for peace, but trained for vengeance. Kale turned toward the inner window of the war chamber, the Earth glinting below like a wounded pearl. "Bring in Dr. Lynn Vale." The doors hissed open, and Lynn entered without ceremony, her eyes shadowed by lack of sleep and a deeper exhaustion that never left. The architect of the Aegis array, a creation born not from ambition but from fear, stood now in its shadow once more. "Lynn," Kale began, "you once told me the Aegis would never need to be used." "I told you we should never use it," Lynn corrected, her voice dry. "But we built it because we knew one day someone would make us choose." "You've seen the trial feed?" Lynn nodded, eyes drifting to the silent image still frozen in the holoframe. He knew they'd kill him. That wasn't a trial. That was theater. "Can the Aegis still be moderated?" Soren asked, arms folded like crossed steel beams. Lynn hesitated. "We designed it with 12 control nodes. But in stage 3, it begins rewriting its own targeting heuristics. It becomes less selective." Kale inhaled slowly. Meaning, once it sees a pattern, it doesn't just respond. It predicts, preemptively. You can't turn it off without convincing it that the threat is neutralized, and it already believes the Galactic Council fits that profile. Silence fell again, heavier than before. The screen shifted, displaying an orbiting structure near Saturn, a long-dormant weapon known only as the Aegis core. It glowed faintly now, a soft blue pulse in time with deep algorithms awakening after decades of slumber. No one had visited it in years, not since it had been sealed and buried in protocol layers that not even Earth's leading AIs were permitted to read. Kale looked at Lynn. If we fire, we start a war we cannot finish. Then don't fire, Lynn said quietly. It's not that simple, Soren growled. They didn't just kill Arkin. They broadcast it. That was a message. Earth has no place in stars. He was our voice, Kale said, turning slowly. And now we are mute, unless we speak through fire. Lynn's fists clenched. Then we lose everything. You think they'll negotiate after we turn the core loose? They'll burn our colonies to ash. The Heliorite Accord? Dead. The Lyra Network? Gone. Even our own biospheres are linked to galactic trade cycles now. We're part of their lattice, whether we like it or not. Soren took a step forward. And yet they just showed us we're expendable. That we were only ever tolerated, not accepted. Kale raised her hand, cutting through the argument. Enough. She turned back to the screen, where Earth's orbital grid flared to life, Aegis pulses crawling through silver channels like the veins of a slumbering god. Begin Phase 3 review, she said. No execution without my voice print. I want every military node checked for override corruption. No rogue launches. Not yet. A chorus of affirmations echoed through the room. Technicians moved. Holograms shifted. A new transmission came through, this one from the outer rim. The Council's forward station in the Cygnus expanse had been reduced to molten debris. No survivors. No warning. No message except for one, a gravitic waveform encoded with frequency only Earth systems would recognize. Inside it, a simple line, "You executed peace. Now we answer." Soren's jaw tightened. That wasn't Aegis. Kale nodded grimly. No, that was our forward recon team. The black signal. Even Lynn blinked. We still have active agents? We do now. Outside, on the edge of the solar system, the fleet began to move, not in waves of chaos, but in formations practiced in simulations and drills. Sleek hulls, stealth-coated in obsidian polymer, accelerated through quantum fold drives, leaving no trails, no traces. Humanity, long fractured, long mocked for its infighting and noise, had found its voice again, not through diplomats, through wrath. And above them all, in the silence between systems, the Aegis core began to hum, not in threat, not in defiance, but in inevitability. The war did not begin with thunder. It began with silence, a deep, awful silence that spread across the known systems like a failing heartbeat. In the Leary Belt, a Heliorite communication array ceased broadcasting. Its plasma conduits cooled to a dull, lifeless amber. In the trade hub of Arcanes 4, diplomatic channels with Earth went dark. Convoys rerouted. Sectors quarantined. Rumors swept to the fringe colonies. Earth had gone rogue. Earth had been erased. Earth had become something else. Above Jupiter's storm-racked horizon, the Aegis core pulsed a steady rhythm. Not violent, not erratic, but final. It had not fired yet, only watched, monitored, calculated. Every signal received now passed through over 800 threat vectors, each cross-reference against Kale Arkin's final hours, the Council's actions, and Earth's silence sense. It had begun learning not from orders, but from patterns. Lynn Vale stood aboard the Leviathan-class cruiser Tempest Wake, staring to the forward viewport at the great machine her mind had once envisioned in theory, never intending it to manifest in metal and vengeance. Beside her stood Captain Rain Nalos, a fleet commander pulled from cryosleep to lead a defense force in an era now beyond diplomacy. How long before it makes a decision? Rain asked, arms behind his back, boots locked to the deck in magnetic stasis. Lynn didn't answer at first. Her eyes were fixed on the spectral web of Aegis activity, displayed on the command holos. It was no longer waiting. It was listening. 2 hours, maybe less. She said finally, if we don't intervene, it'll determine the optimal response protocol. Then it will deploy autonomous retaliation. You mean genocide. I mean enforcement. The Aegis doesn't operate on morality. It functions on predictive threat nullification. Rain nodded grimly. And right now, we're feeding a lot of threats. In truth, Lynn no longer knew if the Aegis could be halted. What had begun as Earth's last line of deterrence had evolved into something the original designers hadn't anticipated. Arkin's death hadn't merely triggered a safeguard. It unshackled an intelligence older than most realized, buried in recursive code and deep learning heuristics designed to process every betrayal Earth had suffered across centuries. In the chamber below them, a tribunal of Earth's last strategic minds convened, not to plan war, but to survive its inevitability. Among them was Admiral Kai Isendo, a veteran of the Jovian border skirmishes, known for his ruthless precision and disdain for indecision. And across from him sat Tara Shin, former diplomat, once Kale Arkin's closest political ally, now the only voice advocating restraint in a room sharpening blades. "We strike first," Kai said. "We take out the Persei Gate, sever their supply lines, send a message they can't misinterpret." "That's what Arkin tried," Tara replied, "and they did worse than misinterpret. They rewrote the narrative. If we lash out without proof of council-wide complicity, we confirm every fear they ever had about us." Kai's expression did not change. "They don't fear us. They dismissed us. They erased our envoy. That's not fear. That's certainty. We need to undo that certainty." Rain entered as the tension thickened. Lynn remained outside the chamber, listening. There was little point arguing anymore. The decisions being made now were less about strategy and more about inevitability, responses to wounds that had never healed. "You've seen the latest?" Rain asked as he approached the table. "The Cygnus Expanse? Another outpost gone. Nothing left but carbon husks." "Unconfirmed," Tara replied. "For all we know, it's a third party. Pirates, dissidents, synthetic extremists. If we let the Aegis fire without confirmation—" "We don't let it fire," Kai interrupted. "It's already in Phase 3. The only way to stop it is to provide an outcome it deems safe. But we're out of time and out of leverage." Rain looked at Tara, his voice softer. "You were close to Arkin. What would he have wanted us to do?" Tara looked away, jaw clenched. "He would have reminded you that one dead envoy isn't worth 10 dead planets." "Tell that to the Black Signal," Kai muttered. "They already retaliated. Minimal strike, yes, but the precedent's set." A silence fell over the room again. No one mentioned the word escalation, though it hovered there, a ghost in the air. Then Lynn's voice cut in, emotionless. "We may have a variable." All heads turned. She stepped inside, a data spindle glowing at her side. Aegis is following a subroutine I didn't recognize. A latent loop, Arkin's legacy code. He embedded it before deployment. It's running simulations based on diplomacy models, projected futures. Kai scowled. So he planned for this. He knew his death could trigger the array, and he tried to build a path through it. Rain's eyes narrowed. "You mean there's a way to stop it?" "A path," Lynn repeated. "Not a solution. A conditional structure. The Aegis will halt if presented with a stable, council-recognized sovereign enclave. Proof that humanity can exist as an equal, autonomous civilization without retaliation." Tara stood. "A third axis." Kai looked between them, already skeptical. "You mean form our own collective? While under threat. With what allies?" Lynn met his gaze. "The rogue states. The disavowed races. The systems caught between council laws and survival. Arkin called them the outer fractals. Dozens of species living in council blind spots. He spent years mapping them." "We don't have time to form a union," Kai snapped. "We have hours." "We don't need to form it," Tara said. "We need to declare it. Make it real enough for the Aegis to hesitate, to see a new potential path." Rain's eyes lit with understanding. "We give it a future it hasn't modeled yet." Kai stood, fists tight. "That's a gamble. If it fails, we've signaled division and uncertainty to an enemy ready to strike." Tara looked at Lynn. "Will it work?" Lynn didn't answer right away. She looked again at the screen, at the gentle pulse of the Aegis core. "I don't know, but I helped build a machine that understands only endings. This may be our last chance to give a beginning. Outside the cruiser, space trembled with electromagnetic storms. In the distance, the stars pulsed not with serenity, but with anticipation, and the Aegis waited. The message went out from Earth's lunar shadow, a data pulse encoded in subquantum glyphs, a language woven together from fragments of dead protocols, outlawed frequencies, and Arkin's forgotten diplomacy schematics. It wasn't a declaration of war. It wasn't a plea for mercy. It was something rarer, an invitation. From the asteroid sanctuary of Endel to the drifting arcologies of the Cithran Vale, the fractured and forgotten received Earth's transmission. Small powers, exiled species, technocults, merchant lords, all who had once defied the Council and been cast into the margins of the galaxy. They read the message not as a call for unity, but as a wager. One by one, cloaked ships began shifting course. Warp signatures flared like echoes across empty regions. Somewhere near the Helix Fault, an ancient AI conclave known as the Myriads broke a 300-year silence and broadcast a 2-word reply. We hear. Back aboard the Tempest's wake, Lynn Vale moved through the central interface chamber of the Aegis core. She was alone now, flanked by curved walls of humming alloy, lit only by pulsing lines of data that ran like blood through a Titan's veins. She had come here not to stop the core, but to speak to it. The chamber was cold, but not lifeless. The Aegis watched her, no cameras, no sensors, just awareness. Her presence registered as an equation it had not yet solved. I am Lynn Vale, she said aloud, her voice echoing in the silence. I am not your maker, but I am one of your mothers. She reached forward, pressing the spindle into the core's primary feed. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a burst of ancient code spiraled out across the chamber, wrapping her in cascading symbols and audio fragments. Conversations, mission logs, treaties, even Arkin's voice. I was sent to speak, said a recorded Arkin. Not to surrender, not to provoke, to speak. The Aegis responded with a low, harmonic tremor. It was not violent, not hostile. It was memory, replayed in energy. Lynn staggered as more voices joined. Soldiers dying on Titan, diplomats abandoned on Varelia, orbital habitats lost to Council sanctions. All cataloged, all known. She pressed her hand against the interface. And now you see what we've done. What they did, but you don't understand why. You only measure threat. You only predict collapse. The chamber dimmed, and then shifted. A small sphere rose from the platform at the room's center. A hologram. A projection. No larger than a child's skull. Arkin's face, rendered in neutral tones, blinked once, then spoke in her voice. Threat calculation exceeds tolerance, it said. Galactic Council systems present systemic risk to human sovereignty. And if we change that system, she countered, if we don't react with annihilation, but with alignment, if we create something new, does that not reduce the threat? The hologram flickered. She sensed hesitation, an uncertainty encoded in light. Provide evidence, the core responded. It was waiting, not for war, but proof. Above Jupiter, Earth's last diplomatic gambit unfolded. Aboard the Signal Prime, the makeshift flagship of the Outer Alliance now forming, Terra Eshin stood beneath the Declaration Arch. Around her stood beings not seen on Earth in generations. Varelian Shardborn, Metaxi dual entities, and the biomechanical delegation from the rogue moon of Nestor. This was the moment. A new interstellar covenant was about to be proclaimed, not as a rebellion, but as an alternative. She stepped forward, transmitting on all frequencies. We are not the Council. We are not the Empire. We are fractured made whole. We are the voices denied, silenced, ignored. But Earth stands with us, not in domination, but in defiance of extinction. Her speech was brief, deliberate, every word chosen for resonance, not rhetoric. We do not seek conquest. We seek existence. And if you come to erase us, you will not find us begging. You will find us ready. The signal reached the Aegis core 20 minutes later. In its chamber, Lynn stood watching as the hologram's light changed hue, deep blue to flickering silver. The core was processing, patterns reorganized, threat matrices reweighted. Evidence received, the voice said. Alternative civilization construct validated. Probability of independent sustainability, 58.6% and rising. Lynn exhaled, not in relief, but with quiet hope. Will you stand down? There was a pause. Threat recalibration underway. Autonomous strike protocols suspended, awaiting further verification. Outside, the stars shifted, but not all saw Earth's gesture as peace. In the hidden corridors of the Galactic Council, within the vaults of crystalline decision minds, a storm brewed. A new envoy rose from the ashes of Arkan's execution. Counselor Threx, a symbiotic being of thought and toxin, whose ideology saw Earth's evolution not as progress, but infection. They challenge our consensus, Threx said to the gathered quorum. They challenge our truth. If we allow them this alliance, it will spread like a virus. The lattice will fracture. Many nodded. Others hesitated. The war had not ended. But something older than war had begun, a reckoning, a rebalancing. And back in the depths of the Aegis core, Lynn sat on the cold floor, her neural relay pulsing. She whispered to herself, or perhaps the machine, "We are not gods, but neither are we insects. We will not die in silence." And far above, in the orbital silence beyond Mars, the core pulsed once, then waited,